All right. I think everybody is in here now, so we are going to get started, making sure everything is running as necessary. If you can see the screen, deactivate your triggers, would you give me a thumbs up? Very nice. All right. Let us begin. So welcome to Deactivating Your Triggers. I'm excited that you decided to sign up with me and trust me on your emotional wellness journey. We all have triggers. We all have experienced them. We all will continue to experience them over time. The goal is not to be done with all triggers because we're not going to be done with all triggers. The subconscious is like a deep well, so we never know what's coming up out of there. But what we can do is be equipped to understand the nature of triggers, and to process them, also called alchemize them into something useful. So ideally, you'll feel a little bothered, which we call that discomfort, and we will move into processes that will help us not go all the way into a trigger such that we are out of control or unconscious. All right. So if you have no questions, I will begin with the first slide. I just let somebody else in. All right, so we want to talk about triggers, and uh, talking about triggers means that we need to understand in depth what is really going on. A trigger is a situation that activates a belief system. It's any situation that activates a belief system. Now, what is a belief system? Belief systems, hold on one second. All right. So, what is a belief system? Belief systems are very simple in concept, though it can be very complex within you. A belief system is a set of principles or rules. They help to inform you of the world around you, and they help you to interpret the world around you. So, I want to say that again. Belief systems A belief system is a set of principles or rules that help inform you of the world around you and help you interpret what's going on. This can be simple as believing in only using a pencil for a crossword puzzle, or it could be complex, like the various sets of belief systems within religions. So I just want to make that clear what a belief system is. It's a set of principles and rules that help you interpret the world. Okay. What is a personal belief system? A personal belief system is a set of beliefs that an individual holds about the world, about society, and many other things. For example, it can be someone's personal belief system to never fold the corners of pages in a book. All right. So belief systems can be complex and they can be very simple, but we all have them. The question is, how aware are we of them? So if we have no questions, I'll continue. Belief systems can be beautiful guides or they can be very limiting, right? And so a concept to understand as we are progressing through this is, number one, we are all great storytellers when it comes to our limiting beliefs. Okay, we tell stories about everything. The stories are our interpretation. Remember, a belief system is a set of principles or rules that tell us how to interpret the world. And a limiting belief system comes from the way that we interpret the world and the story we put together from that interpretation. It's also important for you to remember that these interpretations or limiting beliefs are narratives, right? And they're not just willy-nilly narratives, they're backed up by experiences. If you've had the same experience more than once, sometimes you only need to have an experience one time. If you have an experience one time paired with a strong emotion, that belief system will log into your system and become a story of how the world works. The belief systems are narratives that are backed up by trauma, things that have happened to you. Okay, so you can't tell yourself that a belief system is not true. That just won't work. That's why we don't work heavily with positive thinking at this stage, because these narratives are backed up. Okay, so it's not going to decondition by positive thinking. We have to go much deeper than that. Okay, so remember that these narratives are valid. Like, we're not moving to invalidate your interpretation of the world or your experiences or what has happened. They're very valid. We just have to understand that the story becomes distorted when you add the belief system. Okay, and so again, they're backed up by experiences and traumas and contextualized by our cultural environment. Okay, and this is Marissa Peer who made this statement. And the point here is that belief systems are just not going to submit to positive thinking or your will. Another concept to remember, that since none of these belief systems are inherently yours, you were not born with them. You were not born with belief systems. Okay, you were taught belief systems. And so, since none of them are inherently yours, you can remove them and empower yourself with ones that will create permanent change. So, number one, remember that we are all telling stories about things that have happened according to our beliefs. These narratives are backed up, they're deeply logged into our subconscious, so they're going to take some work. And the other idea is these were not originally yours. Okay? If you were born in Asia or you were born in Africa, you would have a different set of belief systems. So these belief systems are not inherently yours, and they can be changed. Okay, I'm going to take a moment to see if you have any questions and let somebody in. All right. So we have to accept these concepts that we all are telling. You are creating narratives based upon your belief systems, and so are other people. And nothing is wrong with creating narratives. It's that just that we have to remember to go back, and I call it update the file. Okay, when you find out new information like this course, or you read a book, or you get a sudden revelation, sometimes we move forward in our current self, but we forget to update the files, the relative files, the other experiences. The other experiences need to be updated. Okay. And you can see when people don't update their files about you, how they are living in the past and unable to see where you are right now. Remember that these are deeply logged into your subconscious. So don't get upset with yourself if you go back into a previous belief system. The residual is going to be there. That's normal. But as you glean more information and more strategy, you'll know what to do with it. And remember, this stuff that you believe right now, even though you believe it right now, even though you've accepted it right now, it is not inherently, you're so important, because sometimes we cling to belief systems like it's our life. The belief systems become our identity. If a person disagrees with a belief system, we feel rejected or unheard or undervalued and things of this nature. So understand that this is not inherently yours, and you can exchange them for new ones that serve you. We're not stuck with these belief systems, but they are powerful, no doubt. Okay. So let's look at some examples of belief systems. You can always tell what's a belief system when a person is using the word should. Okay. When a person is using the word should, that's indicating a belief system. We can also call a belief system an ideal. It's the way they think the world should be working. Okay, so I'm going to give you some examples, and as I read these, I'd like you to think about your own shoulds. Okay, and I call them shoulds. Your ideals, your belief systems are often phrased as should and ought. Okay, so here's an example of people should not judge me. Okay, that's what happens. That's what's activated when you feel judged. You believe that people should not do that. That's your belief system. All right. People should accept my judgment. When you judge other people, you don't want them to flex against it. You don't want them to get offended. You want them to accept your truth, right? People should understand how I feel. If you've gone out of your way to explain something over and over again, if you've made it clear, you've proven yourself and all of these things, then you believe that they should understand because you understand. You understand some things, right? So why can't they? That's a belief system. Okay. People shouldn't hurt others. You might say, well, that's a universal truth. Well, I don't believe that people should hurt others either, but people can hurt others, and they do. Okay, so we have to find the right placement for that belief system. Another one, I shouldn't make others feel away. Okay, people should want to or try to change. That's a big one. We begin thinking, feeling offended when a person does something that we don't like and they don't even look like they're remorseful or even thinking about it. Okay. People should stand by their word. That's a belief system. People should not lie. We're taught that from an early age. Don't lie. People should care the way I want them to. Okay? Because when people don't care about what you care about or care about you the way that you want them to, or hold something of importance, you feel away, right? These belief systems are associated with thoughts, interpretations, and feelings. People should want to stay together. We believe that. So when you get in a relationship and the person is not wanting to change, the person is not really coming to see things in a certain way. This could be parental, this could be friendship, sibling, romantic, whatever. You start feeling some kind of way because they don't even want to try. You tell them things like you're not trying because you believe that people want to stay together. Imagine in that situation how many belief systems are activated. People should want to try to change. People should make others feel a certain way. People should understand how I feel. People should care the way that I want them to. You got 10,000 belief systems going off in that one scenario, right? People should understand one another. People should always be honest. These are examples of our belief system. So take a moment and examine your shoulds. Like, have you thought of anything like this today? People should or shouldn't. They ought. They should have done this. They shouldn't have done that. And maybe scribble it down or just allow it to come to your mind for later reference. These are your belief systems. These are your set of principles and rules that govern how you interpret the world. Okay. And understand that other people have belief systems too. What are they? Do you know? Well, they're telling you constantly when they say you should have done that and you should have done this. And if that was me, I wouldn't have done that. They're giving you their belief systems as well. Remember, you're free to type questions in the chat. So it's important. I encourage you not to skate by this self-work. You need to understand your belief systems as in as many categories as possible. You need to understand your belief systems about love, about relationship, about work, about management on a job. I mean, about parent-children relationships, neighbors, how you should be treated when you go into an establishment. All of these things are super important because it's knowing yourself, know thyself, right? And if you know yourself, then you can understand what parts of yourself need to shift. Because remember, these belief systems are not inherently yours. They were taught. And you don't have to be attached to any of them, or you could feel that all of them are important. It's totally up to you as the creator of your reality. So I want you to remember as you go about your days this week, when you feel some discomfort, ask yourself what belief system is being activated. So I want to just take a moment right here and say this. We also have belief systems that result in positive feelings. Right. If you feel that you should be celebrated for your birthday, when people celebrate you, you feel happy. Right? If you believe that people should care when you're sick, then you're going to love that your friend cooked soup for you when you were sick. You're going to feel something loved. Okay. So belief systems are not just negative, they're the whole entirety of the way the rules we place on our environment and how we interpret it. The room is open for any questions as we continue. So, some years ago, I was introduced to this phrase, the meaning making machine. This was maybe about 8 years ago, and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with it because it's profound. So, I'm going to read what I have on the screen. It says that we are meaning making machines, referring to our interpretations and the narratives that come from the interpretations. We hear things, we see things, we filter it through our experiences, judgments, and assumptions. All of those have to do with your belief systems to make sense of the world around us and give it meaning. In short, we tell ourselves a story, then we believe it. We tell ourselves a story, then we believe it. It's important to understand how this is working within you and within other people. We tell ourselves a story, then we believe it. From our point of view, it is absolute truth. Given this certainty, we decide what we will do next. I love that. So the meaning making machine is a situation happens, you interpret it, you tell a story, you believe it. Oftentimes, because your experiences are limited and your experiences are not the same as other people's experience, your narratives often don't coincide with other people. Okay, so you're saying this is how it went, and they're saying, no, I remember it went like this. And they're like, no, I remember it went like this. I can remember having in couples coaching, a client was talking about a situation that happened, and the husband said, no, I know it did not happen on that day because I remember we were in Best Buy, we were looking at those refrigerators, and da da da. And then the wife was like, that was not the day we were in Best Buy. Okay, so who's right? Both people are right. And if we stay fussing about when it happened, we won't see how the interpretations are affecting the relationship, because that's what's important. A lot of times we get stuck on the facts and the way we remember the facts, but that's often not where we need to place our attention. And we'll talk about that in upcoming weeks. So remember, you got a meaning making machine. You see things, you tell a story, you believe it. It could be true, it might not be true, but is that it's true for you. Okay? It may not be universally true, it may not be a shared truth, but it's true for you, and we can work with that. So we're not going to use the fact that it's true for you to draw a stubborn line in the sand and be like, well, that's your truth, and my truth is this, and we can agree to disagree. That's not going to help us very much. Okay, we need to create a shared space with other people. And the way that we start doing that is understanding these preliminary things. Okay, and I hope you can see as you think about people in your life who you feel have been unreasonable in understanding or unwilling to resolve something or unable to move forward, you can start seeing how and why they weren't able to. And you can even look at yourself and see how and why you weren't able to in some situations. We're going to talk more about strategy in later sessions, but in this session, I just wanted to set a foundation. Okay. So moving along, remember, questions are welcome. So let's look at these interpretations. We looked at examples of belief systems. I really need you to do that self work. Write all the belief systems you can find down. People should, they shouldn't go throughout your day and realize where you feel discomfort and write the belief system down. Okay. So now there are interpretations. A trigger is a situation that causes you to apply, excuse the typos because I'm still working on that. That's why I haven't shared it. A trigger is a situation that causes you to apply an interpretation of a situation based upon your belief systems. Again, what is a trigger? A trigger is a situation. The trigger is not how you feel. How you feel is triggered. Okay, but the trigger is simply a situation or a thing that causes you to apply an interpretation to tell a story about a situation based upon your belief system. I want to just stop right here and understand that everything we think we know about a situation is the story we're telling about the situation, usually. Okay, when we're talking about facts, the facts are you walked in the door. I don't know if you walked in the door yesterday or 2 days ago or 5 years ago, but the truth is you had to walk in the door. Can we start there? Okay, rather than telling a story about when you walked through the door. The truth is you walked through the door because you came inside. Okay, that's the start. We don't have to tell a lot of stories about things, right? If we can really cut out the parts that we don't agree on and get to the bottom of the things that we do agree on. Okay, so I'm just throwing that in there as a nugget. So let's look at some interpretations. This interpretation triggers an emotion. Your interpretation triggers the emotion. One more time. Your interpretation triggers the emotion. The situation triggers a belief system, which causes you to interpret, and the interpretation triggers an emotion. Why are you feeling any of this? Because they made you feel that? No, because they said something that activated a belief system where you felt they shouldn't have said that. Then you interpreted it, you told a story about it, and started feeling some kind of way. It's your interpretation that makes you feel a way. So, some possible interpretations are I feel unheard. Now, just because it's an interpretation doesn't mean it's true or untrue. It's how you are seeing it. And so we're not trying to invalidate anything right here. We're just trying to understand how it works. There's no invalidation. I'm not saying that this is not valid. It is valid. It's in your brain, it's in your experience. It is valid. And it's got to be most valid, most important to you. Because as you start seeing the complexity of what's going on, understand why people don't know what's going on inside of them. So they really are going to have a difficult time understanding what's going on with you. You are privy to information like this. The average person is not going that deep. They want to agree to disagree, or that's your truth, and this is my truth, and they stop right there. But you're going deeper into yourself, and going deeper into yourself will help you to understand others. So an interpretation is I feel unheard, or I interpret this as I am unheard. We attach the word feeling to a lot of things that are not feeling. We attach the word feeling to thoughts. You know, I laugh all the time because my mom says things like, I feel to believe. What is that? I feel to believe. You know, so she's giving me a thought, but she's attaching the word feeling to it. Sometimes I ask people, how do you feel? And they say, I feel they should have done something different. You think they should have done something different, okay? And because you think they should have done something different, you feel an emotion. Your interpretations, all right? I feel unheard. I feel powerless. You're never powerless. This is an example of how an interpretation could be untrue. When you interpret the experience as unheard, that might be true. Maybe they're not hearing you. But the truth is, you're never powerless. However, you can interpret a situation to see yourself as powerless. You can do that. You're powerful. You can believe true things and untrue things, okay? And it's going to be up to you to begin to understand the nature of who you are and how you are in order to know which ones are true and which ones are not, so that when people invalidate your experience, you're not knocked off your rocker. You're not feeling just so upset because you feel misunderstood. You know that you're misunderstood, but you don't have to have the experience and the interpretation of what it means to be misunderstood, right? So you may interpret a situation as you're being judged. That's you know that's depending on the person, because you may say you judged me and the person may say they didn't, okay, or vice versa. This is why I don't spend a lot of time trying to validate interpretations. Right? So it could be true that you're judged. It might not be true, okay, but it is always valid. You may interpret a situation as they think you're insignificant, or you think they're blaming you, or you think that you are feeling frustrated and as a result powerless. You may think that you are trivialized or uncared for. You may think that you've been manipulated. You may think that you've been trapped. You may think that you are looking like the bad guy. You may think that you possibly are wrong. Other people may think the same things, right? We're just trying to understand how this works. All right. So let's go over negative triggers. And we have a few minutes left here. I'm going to stop and see if you have any questions.
I do have a question. When you're in a situation where
Okay, for some reason I can't hear you. I think it's because of my microphone. So you might have to type it.
Okay, I'll type it.
So I'll be looking out for that.
Okay.
And when we're done, I'll completely turn the mic off so I can hear you. Okay, a negative trigger. We already talked about the difference between positive and negative triggers. I just want to read this. Negative triggers are situations that evoke, through interpretation, emotions. Emotions inform you that some belief on the inside is not being reflected on the outside, and this produces discomfort. The purpose of the discomfort is to help you identify places in your life that need to shift, whether that shift is in your mindset or in your outer reality. And it all is to promote evolution. It's important for me to say that. The reason that we feel anything at all, perceive anything at all, is for evolution, for us to examine what is going inside and what is going outside. Do I see this reflection out here? Okay, so either the thing I see needs to change or the way I see needs to change, one of them. And we get to decide which one is true for us, and so do other people. So let me go through this chat room really quick. All right, so it says, when you are in a situation and you notice someone else is in a trigger, do you try to talk it through? One thing to understand, that the trigger has set off a whole chain effect, right? So the trigger has activated a belief system. The interpretation has happened already, and they are now experiencing the interpretation. I might check to see how conscious they are. Okay, by asking a question. I like to ask questions, and the question could be something like this: are you open to discussing how I saw it? Are you open to hearing my heart about this? Are you open to a different perspective? If the person says yes and they are not far enough in the trigger where their hearing is shut down, then you could possibly talk that through. If they know how to manage themselves, like for me, with people I love, I tell them, just say this: can I talk to you? If you put it like this, especially my children, no matter what I'm doing, I could be in the middle of anything. If you say, can I talk to you? That's going to shift me into active listening.
Mhm.
That's the phrase that helps me. So sometimes within relationships, if you want to set up something healthy, you can set up a phrase in advance that will suspend the trigger for a second. Because if we're early enough in the triggering situation, we can suspend the judgment. The belief system is activated, but we can suspend the interpretation and the telling of the story and the judgment so that it's not fully formed, And this is a really, I think it's a really good strategy. I could be in the middle of just feeling so frustrated and so upset, but that phrase causes me to come back to my present moment and go, okay. Or if a person says, I realized this in talking, just in talking, when people say, hear me out, that's a trigger for my active listening. So I'll go, okay. I could be in the middle of a whole explanation. If they say, hear me out, I'll pause. So that's kind of a nugget that you can take for yourself in self work. Is there a phrase that triggers your active listening in your relationships that feel turbulent, or you're having some difficulty? Is there a phrase that you can implement? This helps us create intimate space, right? So I hope I answered that question. What triggers can I do to work on my own? Okay. So if you know, for example, that you often have an interpretation with the person of feeling unheard, okay, you can say to the person and test out their consciousness. Right now, I'm feeling unheard. I'd like to express this in a different way. Are you open? I can tell that what I've expressed didn't quite go over the way that I meant it to. Are you open to hearing me say it a different way? Sometimes people will say something like, no, I understood you. You like, no, by your response, I can tell there's not full understanding. I don't feel fully fleshed out here. Are you open? The person may say, no, I heard you. I understand you more than you know. Then they're just saying no, you know. So before we begin working on the triggers, though, it's important to work on the belief systems, because when the situation happens, the belief system is what starts the whole chain effect. So if you can get a good understanding of what's going on in that area of the belief systems, that's a start. That's like step one. Understand your belief systems. That's why we're doing the self work of going through all of your shoulds and oughts. Okay. Next step in self work is understand your interpretations. Is there a pattern you notice when you're talking to people? Do you often walk away feeling misunderstood? No matter who it is, there's some people who have a narrative that nobody gets them. Nobody understands. We have a term for it. We call it black sheep. I'm the black sheep of my family. That's an interpretation. Okay, like I said, interpretations are valid. They may or may not be true, but they are valid. So we're not invalidating any experience. But we are examining whether or not the interpretation and the resulting narrative serves. Most people who are thinking of themselves as a black sheep they're not really being highly served by that term. They feel isolated. They feel alone a lot. They almost anticipate people not understanding or receiving. So we got to really ask ourselves, is this causing me to expand and create more of what I want? Because the truth is, most people who have that term black sheep, I'll just go there, they don't want to be the black sheep. They actually want to be accepted. But since they're not, they take on a role identity, okay, a narrative that this is the role I play in my family. And it's valid, okay? We just got to wonder, is it serving? All right. So I'll do one more slide and then we'll end it here. The emotions. So we went over belief systems. All of your shoulds and oughts, you are going to examine them this week. You're going to examine your patterns of interpretations. And I'm going to correct the typos and then place this in a band for y'all. So now we have the resulting emotions. What are some emotions? You can find many more words. I encourage you to. Some examples of emotions are excitement, happy, proud, disappointed. I feel resentful, angry, bothered, fearful, infuriated, grieved, nervous, anxious. The list goes on and on and on. So let me help pull this together as we're coming to a close. The situation happened and my belief system was activated. I believed that they shouldn't have done whatever they did. The result of feeling that they shouldn't have done what they did led me to feel insignificant or perceive that I was uncared for. Because I felt uncared for, I moved into emotions of disappointment. Maybe you were uncared for, maybe that was your interpretation. We have to examine that. I need you to understand what the interpretation is so you can examine this even more deeply. Let's go back to the interpretations really quick, because you might be say, well, how do I know if that was an interpretation of it or if it really did happen? That's why we're looking at your patterns of interpretation. Okay. I felt or I perceived that I was unheard. I perceived that I was blamed. I perceived that I was being manipulated. Sometimes it's helpful to look at this not from the inside out, but from the outside in. Let's say some person had the interpretation that you were manipulating them. It's valid inside of them because of their experiences and their belief systems and their narratives and stories. But did you really manipulate them? You may say no. So are we going to go back and forth about you manipulated me? No, I didn't. You manipulated me? No, I didn't. Or let me explain why I didn't. Can you see why I didn't? Or are we going to understand that on the level of interpretation, there's a problem? It's not what happened. On the level of the interpretation, there's a big problem. And are you willing to look at it? Instead of turning this into you're wrong, you're lying, you're not right. You always do that. No, on the level of the interpretation, can we look at that? Can we state what happened? Can we isolate our belief systems? Can we see that the interpretations are different? Can we create a shared space of understanding? Can we do that? We won't do that if we stay fussing on the level of what happened and fussing with facts about facts and discrepancies. So I'm going to end with an example. And I'm going to create a band for us so that we have a central place to share. So personally, this is a personal example. We know that I have a very strong personality. Okay, it's strong. I'm not unaware of that. And because I know it can come across strong, very strong, and I know that when I'm dealing with a person whose personality is not as intense, right? There's this possibility of the person feeling like I controlled them. I know there's that possibility. Okay. So I'm not going to get too upset if somebody says you're controlling. Okay. So the measure that I put in place for myself is that I always want people to have options. Even if I don't like it, you are free to have options. Okay. And I want you to know that. So I'll put a little statement at the end of what I say or a question that acknowledges their option. I understand you might not feel that way. I understand you might not agree with this. I understand this might not be the best thing for you. What's best for you? That's the way I satisfy my own soul. that I was not controlling the person because I gave a highlight of their choice and their options. So they were free to look at that. And so, in that way, if a person still says that I'm controlling, I do not feel triggered about that because I understand their interpretation. I understand the dynamic. And I'm not going to go back and forth about, no, I wasn't. Yes, she was. No, I wasn't. I'm going to ask them a question. Are you open to seeing this a different way? If they give me some indication of no, right, then I'll deal with whatever came up after that in the ways that we're going to talk about in the upcoming weeks. Gave that as an example that sometimes you get stuck on the level of the problem. This happened, no, it didn't. That happened, no, it didn't. You said that, no, it was yesterday, it was 5 months ago. No, it wasn't. All of this stuff. And the problem is clearly not there. So I hope you can see that clearly. Next week, we are going to continue on with more understanding, and I hope to get into some strategy. So we're going to end right here. I'll stop to see if there are any questions. I'm going to turn this mic off to see if I can hear you. I don't think you guys can hear me.
We can hear you now.
Nope. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We
You
can
can hear
hear
me
you.
now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, very nice. All right, so I don't think there were any questions. This is my first time using this mic on my computer, so I'm having a little learning curve right now. So thank you so much for your patience. We're going to end right here and just take a deep breath, come into some self-awareness. We are aware that this is an ever evolving process, a journey that we're on, a journey that we're in. And we are committed to having grace for ourselves and for others as we begin to get clarity about what's really going on and what has always really been going on. So now we take a deep breath in through the nostrils, out through the mouth, and we trust processes. We trust the process. We trust the process. And we release the outcome for right now. We speak peace into our hearts and minds until we meet again. And if you agree with that, you can type in Ashe or just say it quietly to yourself. Ashe. That's it, y'all. Have a good night.